Welcome to Yin. I'm grateful to be here with you guys, and thank you so much for dedicating time for yourself to practice. Before we get moving in this Yin class, I'm going to share something that's alive for me today. I travel often with old journals, and I happened to find one from 2016 today, this morning. And a bit of background, 2016 for me as a human was a really, really challenging year. I was experiencing a health problem that very much still affects me to this day, and it really turned my world upside down. I was in a breakup and all the human things. So it was a time that was defined by a lot of grief and a lot of challenge. And I wrote in big letters in 2016 in my journal, "Nothing will be okay until you are okay." And just like all things, I don't necessarily know exactly the truth of what I felt of that in that moment. But in 2021, I look back and I see a deeper truth within those words, and it's what I'd like to share and dedicate this class to. What I meant by those words, or what they mean to me now, I should say, is that, man, there's going to be so many challenges, so much resistance in our human path. And those things are inevitably hard. It's our job to feel them, to experience them, to grow from them, to be challenged by them. But at the same time, our only control is our perception of what happens to us. Through the lens of yoga, this is a safe container, as all the different layers of your constitution are free to speak. Our job is just to be here with this moment exactly as it is, knowing that it can and will shift. So this moment might be challenging. It might be grief-ridden. It might be about loss. It might be about scarcity of whatever it is, it's welcome here. And so I'll start class with those words. Nothing will ever be okay until we're okay. That's not to denounce external factors that affect our psyche. They're very real. But how do we think about what is occurring, what is unfolding? That belief system is arguably the most empowering belief system that I have. And if it serves you, please take it. If it doesn't, let's just do some yoga together. We're gonna start by lying on our backs. Before we get moving, as always, grab props. I may not cue any specifically. I'll give you options, but for Yin, it's always helpful. Grab some pillows, blankets, blocks, whatever you got. Feel free. So we're going to start by lying on our backs. And we'll simply start in constructive rest. So bending the knees, soles of the feet down to the ground, feet wide, knees together. Just take a few moments to simply arrive, meaning whatever is here already is. So our intention, it's never to fix anything, to change anything, to run through the hard stuff, or to celebrate what feels easy. Our job is just to observe our reaction within any given moment. That is how we practice being okay, even when we are not okay. Let's take a moment to unite the breath. Big inhale all together through the nose.
Exhale, big sigh, let it out the mouth. We'll add a little bit of movement into our initial phases of the practice. Extend your ankles, extend your arms up towards the ceiling, but let it be really passive. I had a teacher who just always used to say she felt like a dead bug here, and that's a bit morbid, but that's really what you want to feel like. Your arms, they're up, but you want to find the sweet spot where they're just kind of hanging in space. And then just begin to circle the wrists, circle the ankles. Begin to move in the opposite direction. And as the movement begins to slow, we'll do about a minute of shaking called Tantramasana. I'm sure many of you have done this with me before. It's one of my very favorite things to do, not just on the mat, really in life, shake. So we'll begin to shake the wrists, shake the ankles. It starts perhaps small, but if you're doing it right, you're really incorporating the entire body. So you're not worried about what it looks like. You're starting this practice by committing to feeling what is here, what already is. Keep shaking the wrists, shaking the ankles, feel the movement move throughout the entire body. 30 seconds or so more. And pentacle pose. That is a mini shavasana. Open the legs wide, opening the arms wide, take up space. So much of yin is awakening to what is subtle. So in this shape, I encourage you to feel what is still in motion. Our first yin shape will be broken wing pose. You'll bend the knees, bring the soles of the feet down to the ground. You'll roll to your right first time around. Slide the left hand behind the back. You can place your palm low on the back. That'll be less sensation in the left shoulder, the left side of the neck. You could also move your hand upwards really high to increase sensation. We're looking for sensation, so we're looking for that intelligent edge. We're looking for opening, but never opening that distracts from the breath. Once you've found the placement of your hand, your palm faces down, you begin to roll onto the hand completely. So now your knees are either straight up towards the ceiling. If they're not, you have to keep rolling onto that left palm. And you can stay as you are. You could also extend the legs long. And the last step, if you like it, is to gaze over that right shoulder. The right arm, it's just relaxing. It can come to the body. It could also just simply relax by your side. So we're consciously placing ourselves within a moment that is inherently uncomfortable. And we're doing so just so that we can watch how we habitually react when things are a bit uncomfortable, when they are unfamiliar. How would you like to show up when those forces are present externally off of your mat? And then however you answered that question, that's what we're doing right now. Layer by layer, breath by breath. We're deepening our steady simply observing and honoring the way the breath moves the body. You're in your last 10 cycles or so of breath. Is there one last way that you could release some effort? Curiously looking for ways that you can let the shape work for you. And slowly we'll begin to release the shape, shift the gaze back through neutral. It can be helpful to bend the legs, roll off to the right. With as little movement as you can, make your way back onto your back. You can keep the knees bent. You could extend the legs long. Give yourself a few moments of stillness. Notice what is happening underneath the surface. We'll move on to the opposite side. Bring the soles of the feet down to the ground. This time around, you'll roll to the left so that you can slide your right hand behind your back. Palm faces down, thumb is up. And then slowly lower your body weight entirely onto that right hand. Relaxing the left arm out to the side, or feel free to bring it to the belly. You can keep the legs bent. You could extend the legs long. And if you choose, you can gaze over your left shoulder. So in yin, always take the time to make the shape feel sustainable. So there is intensity, but it's intensity that you can breathe within, that you can observe instead of react to. And then observe. We're in these shapes for a few minutes, and that's very intentional. In physicality, we're working with the joints, the tendons, the body's connective tissues, and those portions of the body, you can work with them most directly by long held passive postures. But beyond the physical body, we are moving energy within the body. We're here long enough that we get to practice what it's like to soften within resistance, to relax into what already is, whatever it is, layer by layer, breath by breath. few cycles of breath. How much of yourself is here and available right now? Begin to shift the neck back to neutral in your own way, as slowly as you could. We will release, arriving onto our back, listening to the wisdom of the body and absorbing whatever now happens to be in stillness. Just to take a few rounds of breath. Observing how what is stagnant is now in motion. We'll meet back up in tabletop pose. So you're welcome to bend the legs, knees in towards the chest. You can take the slow path, the slowest train to get there. You can rock forwards and backwards along the length of the spine. You could just simply roll off onto your side. Over the next few rounds of breath, we'll make our way to a tabletop position, shifting your shoulders above the wrists, the hips above the knees. And for the first few rounds of breath, just move, just explore. Exploration doesn't have a pace, it doesn't have a destination. Doesn't need to look pretty, but I do encourage it to feel good. Coming back in towards a tabletop position, bringing your fingertips towards the outer edges of the mat so your wrist creases shine forward towards one another, and then your shoulders stay stacked right above the wrists. And then just begin to sway a little bit from side to side, just warming up the ribs. In meridian theory, all the meridians within the body meet only at the soles of the feet. The upper meridian lines within the upper body, however, they all meet in the hands. The hands are the direct extension of the heart. So keep breathing into whatever is here. And then we'll bring our fingertips inwards towards our knees. We'll move through some cat-cows from here. Inhale, lower the belly towards the ground, spread through the sit bones, spread through the collarbones, lift your gaze, shoulder blades squeeze towards one another behind you. And as you exhale, navel towards the back body, tail tilts forward, press the ground away from you, navel towards the spine, round the back body. Keep moving just like that, your pace. Next inhalation will bring you back to neutral. Flip your fingertips forward, notice what's here. You can come off the wrist at any time. You can choose to stay here, or for a few rounds of breath, come into downward facing dog. I won't fuss about alignment. As always, whatever you're doing, let it feel good. If you're in downward dog, you could pedal the heels, you could sway the hips from side to side, you can bend the legs, you can wiggle. We're just asking the body, what is here right now? What's alive? From tabletop or downward dog, we're making our way into sleeping swan pose, half pigeon in a vinyasa class. We'll bring our right knee forward towards your outer right wrist crease, so your right knee is wider than your hip. You want to be on the belly of the left thigh. In order to do that, you can slide a pillow underneath the right hip. You can choose to stay upright, or you allow the upper body to drape forward until you find that intelligent edge of resistance. So I haven't encountered many people that don't experience intensity within the shape, but the degree of intensity is always up to you. You might soften onto props. You could bring pillows or blocks to support the chest. If there's any portion of your body that is hanging in space, meaning that's not supported by the ground or a prop, I really encourage it. Here we're working with the nervous system as well, and when the body is supported within intensity, it tends to trust this moment of opening. It tends to trust the growth that is occurring even when it's challenging. So the connection to our breath is our link to our nervous system. Let that guide more than anything else. Though we are working most directly with our outer right hip, the entire body is speaking in this moment. But we don't always know how to listen to the body when it whispers, because often we wait until it screams. So right now, encourage yourself to notice the whispers within the body. So notice what's present in your left leg, what's present in the jaw, what story is being told in that right hip. Last few cycles of breath. And then as you're ready, you'll slowly begin to lift the torso, rise all the way up. We'll build our neck shapes directly from here. So you'll roll to the right, and then extend your left leg long out in front of you. I'm going to pivot forward so you know where we're moving. So the right foot can either come anywhere along that left leg. So it might come to the upper thigh, it could come quite down low, whatever feels right in the hip. One thing I will say as well is that you can always elevate your hips if you find that the back is rounding. For the first 2 minutes or so, we will just allow the upper body to drape forward over this extended left leg. This left leg, it's going to be really passive. It's going to be quite heavy, meaning no muscles are engaged. So you can elevate your hips so that that tilt of the pelvis is a little bit easier. You can also bring props on top of that left leg. You might bring a block underneath the forehead. You might use no props at all. You are looking for intensity. that you are able to breathe within, that you can soften within. That's really yin in summation. So it's not a practice where you're trying to do anything. Instead, you're practicing what it means to remember, just to be. Remembering who we are when the doing stops. Who we are when all that armor gets stripped away. Last few cycles of breath. Check in really honestly. Has that intelligent edge changed? Meaning, has the shake become easy? Do you need to consciously move to stay with that intelligent edge? Do you need to back away so that you can actually honestly listen to the body? To move at the pace of the body? And we'll slowly release, vertebra by vertebra, begin to lift the torso, rise all the way up. Good. We're gonna keep the same foundation with our legs, but we'll work into a lateral bend. So you guys will all face the same direction you're in. This time around, as opposed to bringing the chest downwards towards our left leg, our goal is to open up the right side of the body. So how we will do that is, for most of us, we'll probably bring props to the inside of that left leg. We'll come first onto the left forearm. So you might have a big stack of props, maybe 2 pillows, 3, whatever you got. You could also soften your forearm all the way down to the ground. We won't be here for very long at all. Our goal is to open up within the right side of the body. So you can keep your right hand as is. You could drape it to the low back. And I encourage everyone to bring your left hand to support your head. And then let the breath do its thing. Let energy do its thing. Our only conscious choice is to trust in the breath. Is to trust that it is safe to study the self exactly as we are. cycles or so of breath, has that intelligent edge changed? You can always soften your left arm down to the ground. That option, this is not a better option. This is the option to take if this is the shape that you need to stay with that intelligent edge. To release the shape, first release that bound right arm. Left hand is back to the head. And then use the right hand to slowly lift the torso. You can release that left hand. You'll begin to rise all the way up. From here, we're making our way right back to downward facing dog. But the path is going to be up to you to get there. So you might choose to perhaps take an active few moments. You can move through a vinyasa. You might choose to come into child's pose. You can come into a shavasana. And as you're ready, and only then, you'll make your way to swan pose on the left, bringing your left knee forward towards your outer left wrist crease. You can elevate your left hip with props. I failed to mention it before, but supine figure 4, or thread the needle pose, is always an option as well. I'll do less instruction this time around, but find an intelligent edge that is unique to this moment. Meaning, every day is different when we practice. Sometimes we need to practice in such a way that can invite fire within this moment. Sometimes we need to practice in such a way that we come back to stillness, that we come back to silence. This practice is a tool to find balance, but everyday balance means something different. So I empower you to make the choices you need to be here right now. Honoring what is subtle by observing the body as a whole. Is there space for the right leg to release effort? Could you position the props in such a way that you could soften within intensity? And the goal of this practice, it's not to eliminate thought. We're instead just noticing where our thoughts habitually go. For me, I tend to project into what's coming next. I tend to plan
when my mind races. So the practice for me is to come back to this moment, this breath. You'll very slowly begin to lift the torso, rise all the way up. And we'll repeat the same sequence on the opposite side. So you roll to the left, extend your right leg long. If you find that you're rounding through the low back quite a lot, a pillow is your friend, props are your friends, so you can elevate the hips. We'll square our heart center forward. And then melt your chest over that extended right leg, only to that degree of intensity that you can breathe within. So I'll loop it back to where we began. This moment already is whatever it is. How much energy do you want to hand to something not within your control? That's really the question we're asking with every breath we take. The breath is a way that you can hold yourself radically responsible for yourself, for your reactions, for your behaviors, for your thoughts. Very slowly, you'll begin to release the shape, lift the torso, rise all the way up. We'll now work with the left side of the body, lateral bending in the spine. So you'll bring your right forearm down to the floor or to props, bringing the ground closer to you. Your palm can face up initially. And you can either just relax your left arm. It can feel a little bit awkward wherever it doesn't feel as awkward. That's your shape. You could drape it to your upper right thigh if that's available. And then we'll bring our right hand or the right fist to the right ear to the right hand. Letting the breath do its thing. So we're not necessarily trying to open up the left side of the body through force, through engagement of the muscles. But rather, we're allowing time, breath, and gravity to create space. Yin is a beautiful teacher. Here to remind us that grace can often bring you farther than effort ever could.
Well, first, release your left arm, bring it down to the ground for support. Press into the palm so you can free the right arm. You can slowly begin to lift the torso. Feel free to maintain that orientation of the spine. And then coming back to neutral, shifting the gaze forward. We'll move right into our next shape from here. It'll be the last posture on seated poses. So we'll come into butterfly pose. You'll bring the soles of the feet to touch, knees out wide. You can elevate your hips. That again is the option that is most beneficial if you find you tend to round through the spine. The heels could be quite close inwards towards the hips. They could be quite far away. This is more traditional in yin. Honor what you need. Other options for props is to just bring the ground closer to you. I personally like to bring a pillow on top of my legs and then melt my chest forward from there. But perhaps you have a stack of pillows. You can do whatever feels good. Again, our goal, it's not intensity. That might be there, but it's not our goal. Our goal is to practice how to surrender. Within this moment, being honest about our capacity to do so. And keep honestly asking, what do I need in this moment to move towards balance? Is it challenge? Is it softness? Choose to meet your own needs. And then very slowly, you will begin to lift the torso, rise all the way up. We're going to keep the legs as they are. Hopefully you have enough space to recline behind you. If not, you can take some slow, mindful adjustments to make your way onto your back, reclined butterfly pose. As always, you're in charge, so if your arms landed in a shape that you're happy with, you can relax them, you can bring them to your body. Invitation to come into An upper body opener by interlacing your hands underneath the head. So once again, in meridian theory, we're now working with the heart meridian line. If you are interlacing your hands underneath the head, let the elbows be heavy, let the head rest heavy in the hands, soften the shoulders, back and down the spine. And then notice how the shape influences the breath. The heart meridian line, it governs the lungs, our capacity to breathe. You're welcome to stay exactly as you are, or you can begin to shift your gaze over that left shoulder. Though this moment might contain a lot of flavors, your only genuine task is to feel the belly rise and fall. And beyond that, we just have to trust that every flavor is probably part of a larger recipe. You don't have the tools to understand just yet. Now slowly shift the gaze back to neutral. And then switch the interlock of the hands underneath the head. So the opposite pinky, opposite thumb on top. And if it feels invited, you can shift your gaze over to the right. And slowly shift the gaze back through neutral. And then as gently as you can, just simply release your arms, either down to your sides, to your body. Again, feel it's moving. There's probably tingling, a change in circulation. That was kind of amazing. My brain just put together tingling and sensation. Ting-sation. Feel all that. And then as you're ready, you can use your hands to support the legs. Gently draw your knees in towards the chest and give yourself a gentle squeeze. You can sway a little bit from side to side. You might draw some circles on the ceiling with the knees. And then we'll come into our last shapes within the class, spinal twists. We'll open our arms wide, either out to a T or you could cactus the arms, whatever feels better within the body. Shift your hips 1 or 2 inches to the left. And then you'll lower the knees to the right. I just grabbed a pillow and slid it underneath my knees. That's always what feels best for my body. For some people, you might find that bringing a pillow beneath or between the knees feels good for the low back. You might choose that you want no props at all. Right hand can come to the legs. You could keep the gaze neutral. You could also choose to look over either shoulder. Finding sensation that you can observe sustainably. Knowing that it can and will change and intensify and dissipate. But your awareness, it's the constant behind it all. So I started class by saying that nothing is okay until you're okay, referring to a time of hardship in my humanness. But that applies in any given moment. So in those moments that are easy and beautiful and connected and undoubtedly filled with love, we won't perceive those moments until we are those moments internally. You can be in a really idyllic external environment and be experiencing hardship internally. Just like you can be in an incredibly challenging moment and experience internal peace. So if this class leaves you with anything, I encourage you to get in the habit of asking yourself, what do I need right now? To remember I am okay. Last 3 cycles of breath. And then gently shift the knees back towards your midline. We'll move right into the opposite side, shifting your hips 1 or 2 inches to the right this time around, and lowering the knees to the left. You can open the right arm out to the right. You could gaze over either shoulder. So I'll add one last piece. I encourage everyone to get in the habit of asking yourself, what do I need right now? But the last layer is to remember that whatever you need, you have that already. The breath, it helps a lot in this quest of trust. Keep calling on it, it'll always be your ally. Within any chapter of your humanness. is rising. The belly is falling. We expand. We contract. Give and take. Gently guide the knees back in through your midline. And give yourself one last hug. So hug your knees inwards towards the chest. It can be really gentle, keeping the head on the ground. Or you can bring your forehead to the knees, knees to the forehead, flex your feet, make fists with the hands, scrunch all little muscles around the face, creating some tension. So whatever you need in this moment, you have that. You can gift yourself that. Shavasana. Open the legs wide, open the arms wide, take up space. Let it feel good. It's silly not to.
Supporting yourself in any way that you need to so that you can truly take a few minutes of rest. Everything is filled with hilarious paradoxes. There's effort, there's ease. Shavasana is where we receive the benefits of effort. It's where the practice sinks into our bones. It's these next few minutes where the practice becomes not an extension of us, not something we do. It is now something that we embody. And all is well. Namaste.